Trey, thank you for being a voice for drug courts. Thank you for your humility. Thank you for your commitment to service. Thank you for being an inspiration to not only your fans, but to everyone who knows what it's like to watch someone transform in drug court. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce Trey Anastasio.
Hi, everyone. I love drug court, and one thing that I don't think was in that little very kind words, and thank you for the kind words, I didn't say clearly that the reason that I'm here is, other than the fact that I'm here to support all of you, is that I am a very proud graduate of the Washington County Felony Drug Court. I guess I'll just kind of tell you the story a little bit. On December 16th, 2006, my life was a complete catastrophe. I was very, very, very sick from drugs and alcohol. My family was suffering, not only my children and my wife, but my parents, my sister. The band had broken up, and I was physically incredibly sick, sores on my face, and I could not stop using drugs and alcohol. I had tried on countless occasions under my own force of will to stop, and nothing had worked. And I was driving up the New York State Thruway. I was pulled over and arrested and charged with 7 felonies. I was given the choice of serving out my jail sentence, which I think was going to be about 8 months in county jail, they call it a county year, or to enter drug court. And I had no idea what drug court was, but I chose drug court. What I'm here today to tell you is that that was the most important decision in my life. My gratitude for drug court is inexpressible. I absolutely, let me just say one thing. I'm gonna tell you how much I love drug court, and I'm gonna tell you how great it is. It's important for me to say that when I was in it, it was very hard, and I was not a huge fan. I went to drug court in Washington County, which is upstate New York, sort of near Lake George. And for me, in my experience, I had to move away from my home. In order to be in this drug court, I had to live within an hour of the courthouse, and that meant that I lived away from my home for 14 months. I did not sleep in my own bed. I lived in a small apartment right near the jail. Of course, I had lost my license. I had a bike. I rode my bike to meetings and to, whatever I had to do for drug court. I did my community service at the Washington County Fairgrounds, and what I wanted to say today was that what started off as, honestly, almost like a nightmare, it was just crazy that I ended up in this program, has over time, I've been able to see what an incredible blessing it is. The things that I learned in drug court have turned out to be of value on a day-to-day basis as my life has gone forward. Let me give you an example. Well, a very easy example is that this morning I went to a 12-step meeting, which I still do pretty much every day, if possible. And after the meeting was over, I walked out into the hall, and this couple came running up, husband and wife, and gave me a hug. And the wife, the mom, they were telling me about their daughter, and the wife was close to in tears. And she said that her 24-year-old daughter was in her 4th month of drug court right now. She was an intravenous OxyContin addict and had almost died. And what they were telling me, they were fans of the band, and they had come and seen the band. And they just were expressing to me the story of their daughter. And I was able to tell them that, you know, from a place of honesty, that this could possibly end up being the best thing that ever happened to her. And it's an amazing blessing to me. I want to say a couple other real quick things, and I don't want to go on too long, but I really, this opportunity to thank all of you for what you're doing is enormous to me. Some of the things I learned in drug court. Service. I did an enormous amount of service when I was in drug court. And not only community service, you know, physical labor, but I was also encouraged to go to alternative sentencing and talk to teenage kids who were, you know, on the verge of making very bad decisions in their lives. I worked with some other youth groups. I spoke at a sober dance, community events, and as all of us in the recovery, that work in recovery know, service, you know, we know this phrase, service keeps us sober. It's that the lessons that we learn in drug court are the very lessons that keep us sober for the rest of our lives. And you'll notice that a lot of people that are here today serving are in recovery. When it's, the point that I'm trying to make is that you can look at the value of drug court through dollars. It saves a lot of money. That's enough reason to support it. You can look at the value of drug court through humility, or excuse me, through humanity, which is that we owe it to a veteran or to a sick and suffering person to save them. But there's another thing that happens, which is that somebody who comes out of drug court ripples come out. It's not just them. It's their it's my kids. It's their kids. It's their moms. It's their dads. It's their community. And it's the fact that the basic tenet of sobriety is service. You send someone out into the world who most likely is going to continue to do service for the rest of their life. It's an amazing equation. I saw miracles happen in my drug court. I became very close friends with most of the people in there, and there was probably about 50. In my drug court, they took a Polaroid photo of everybody who entered on the first day, including me. On graduation day, they pull out this photo, which of course by that point you've forgotten was ever taken. And the difference in myself, but in some of my friends who I met who came from very, very rough backgrounds. The difference was incredible. The sunlight of the Spirit had come into these people, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing what you're all doing here. I want to just thank 3 people specifically. The first is Andrew Mija, is the name of the patrolman who pulled me over that night. I've written him a letter, but I want to thank him again. I wrote him a thank you letter. And I want to thank Judge Kelly McKeegan, who's my judge, and Melanie Vaughn, my case manager, who I also thanked at the rally. I'm going to tell one more story, and I'm sorry to go on so long, but I had 2 sanctions in drug court. One was a minor infraction for being 45 seconds late for phoning in. I was supposed to phone in from 7:30 to 7:45 or whatever, and I, called in at 7:45 in 1 minute. And for that, I was asked to write my first essay and read it in the courtroom, which I did. The second sanction was that I missed a meeting with my individual counselor at my treatment center. For that, I received 48 hours in Washington County Correctional Facility, which at the time, again, I was not so happy about, as they cuffed me and took me away to jail for missing a meeting. Today, I think that was one of the greatest gifts that ever happened to me. My entire life of drinking and drugging, I had always gotten away with it. And every time I got away with it, it got worse. When I went to jail, I went in there and I sat in this cell, and a lot of the other guys, maybe because I'm in the band or something, they all came over by the cell. One guy brought a deck of cards, and I got to talk to a lot of people in jail. And what I heard from these people, they were great guys, but what I heard was a sense of desperation, and I heard a message inside jail, which is, this is how you beat the urine test. If I had just drank another gallon of water, if I had just gotten a different lawyer, it was all his fault. If I hadn't gotten that judge who was so mean, it was all his fault. My wife makes me pay the alimony, it was all her fault. A very, very negative message. In drug court, I was taught to look at the fact that it was my perspective on things that had value. And I was told, why don't you write a letter to Officer Mija, which I did, and thank him. And why don't you, while you're sitting in jail for 2 days, think about the fact that you never ran into a family while you were driving drunk, and that you're not in there for the rest of your life thinking about harming someone. For which, of course, I'm grateful. So what I'm trying to say is that drug court offers so much more than we can see on paper. The message is so positive, and I saw people next to me whose lives were transformed. I'm still in touch with many people from drug court. I share in their struggles. We talk and we text and we stay and we communicate. And finally, just a tiny thing, I'm sorry to go on so long. There was one veteran in my drug court, and he was a veteran of the Vietnam War. And he was a great guy, and his story was so rough. This guy had been through, prisons and jails, and really nice guy. I used to sit in the back row with him during the Wednesdays when we weren't in court. We were in drug court. And I'm very moved when I'm listening to the speakers today by the fact that the compassion showed by our judge and by our case manager was overwhelming when this guy stood up. I'm not sure that they had the experience. One of the things I heard about veteran courts today that really moved me was, I wish that my friend had had a veterans court, because there were no other veterans in my drug court. And it really was a mystery to, even for a very smart and wonderful judge and a very, very smart and wonderful case manager, I don't think they really knew what to do about a guy who had been in and out of prisons and substance abuse problems since the Vietnam War. So I really applaud what's going on with the veterans courts, and I hope that that continues to be a priority. Thank you guys all so much for having me today.
For you that don't follow rock music or Fish, understand that he's a huge rock star. And huge rock stars don't normally return your phone calls. They don't normally return your text messages and your emails, and they don't normally come out every time you ask them to speak on your behalf. Trey, for your ongoing service to this organization, second time that you've come to Washington, D.C. for us, for being such a huge ambassador, we want to present you the National Ambassador Award, Trey Anastasio. That's it.